Cathy McLeish here, and we are going to talk about relationships today. And if I were newly sober and saw this video, I would be watching it 3 times over and forgetting all the ones about healthy stuff in sobriety. So, what about relationships? Well, first I'm going to tell you, I'm 30 some years sober. And so I have had my own experience over and over again. And then I have also walked that walk with a lot of women that I have tried to help and just coach through the life skills that we need to have in order to have a happy and a healthy life. So, what about relationships in early sobriety? One, if you are already in a relationship and you decide to stop drinking, there are so many changes that are going to happen. And healthy relationships will survive. It will take a lot. It will take a lot to restructure the give and take of all of the change of somebody, even if the person thinks they wanted you to put down that drink. They will struggle to get used to the new you. I remember I got sober and I wanted nothing more than my husband to get sober. We were 2 alcoholics practicing drinking every day with 4 children watching our life just shatter around us. And I thought life would be perfect if he would just get sober. And then when I was 8 months sober, he did. And it was like he woke up from the dead. And all of the things that I had control of, and I didn't know how much I enjoyed having control of, I had to start sharing with him. The finances, the parenting. And I was so shocked at how much I wanted him to go back to the way he was, checked out. And that sounds so unhealthy. And in fact, it was unhealthy, but it was what I was used to. It was my comfort zone. And I was used to being in charge and calling all the shots. And when somebody else started to live life alongside of me, I had to make room for them. So that was one area that, I had to try and figure out, how do I do this relationship? And that is why it's very helpful to have a support system, a mentor, a therapist, a doctor, all of these different things in place, or at least several of them, so that you have other people to talk to, especially other people that are walking the walk before you and can say, this is what I did. This is what worked for me. The first and major thing that I had to wrap my head around is all I could control was myself. So when it came to a relationship, the best thing I could do is show up as a healthy person. So in sobriety, if you're going to be honest, I was looking at someone that had the maturity of about a 15 or a 16-year-old, if that. I had started drinking around the age 13, 14, headed into high school. So I was already drinking in those formative years where I was supposed to be learning how to grow up. And I get sober, 15 years later, 14 years later, and I am still thinking like a teenager. So I needed to do the work on myself. It's not just about putting down the drink. There is so much more to it, and it sounds like a lot of work, and it is, but guess what? I'm the one that reaps all the benefits. And to tell you the honest truth, I reap benefits 10 times whatever work I put into it. So if I put in an hour's work journaling on myself, talking to someone about myself, thinking of one new thing I could implement in my life to grow up, I would reap 10 times the benefit of that. And I had been spending my life, the last 15 years, just going backwards. And the things that I had succeeded at, I, was giving up one at a time. My self-esteem, finances, relationships, things that were important to me, that I said were important to me, I was sacrificing for a drink. So I get into this new life. And unfortunately, my relationship with my husband did not work. And that's a whole nother video, but we stepped away and we rebuilt lives, both of us, on our own in sobriety. And in order to do that, I had to become the woman that I needed to be to attract the person that I wanted to spend my life with. Now that sounds kind of like, maybe that would take you 6 months. Maybe that would take you a year. A year's a little long, isn't it? Actually, it took me 7 years. And here's the thing. I had so much work to do because my life had been enmeshed, not only with another person, but another alcoholic. Everybody doesn't have that situation. So it took me a lot longer to see the truth about my part in things, why I was the way I was, what it was about my low self-esteem that had me making the decisions I was making. I didn't even realize some of the things that I was going to have to work on. And it can seem overwhelming, but here's what happens. We just discover it little bit by little bit. And we actually get this grace that we discover it in the same kind of momentum that we're able to deal with it. So I would get done working on one thing and I think I'd arrived. And then another thing would be shown to me that I needed to work on. And while it was frustrating, I just kept putting brick upon brick upon brick upon brick and becoming more of the woman that I wanted to see in the mirror. So it was my win over and over again, my win. And that is what is out there on the other side of drinking. I used to just not know how to handle life. And so I felt like everything was coming at me, that I didn't have what everybody else had to deal with it. And I was going to have some kind of ammunition to make it possible for me to get through it. And alcohol became that tool. So when I took alcohol away, what did I have? I had a woman that did not know how to do life. And so I had to learn. I had to stay away from a drink because there was no chance of me learning a new way of living without taking the alcohol away, because alcohol distorts my thinking. It depresses me and it distorts the way I look at life. And if I do that year after year after year, I no longer have a good, look at who I am and what is going wrong. And so I take away the alcohol and I start this process of looking at me, either with a therapist, a life coach, a support system in recovery, and they are as many as you want. If one didn't work for you, find another one, because there are all kinds. There's 12-step programs, there's Christian programs, there are programs for every type of personality. And if you cannot find one, I would say you have not looked hard enough. It's like if you went to a grocery store and had a horrible experience. It's not like you would go home and say, I'm never going to a grocery store again. You would never do that. Food is life. And so I will find a way to find a place where I am comfortable shopping for food because I want to live. Well, sobriety is life as well. And so we need to find a place where we are comfortable, where people can help us, where we can help people, because that's part of the process as well, is that I take and I give, and it just is a perfect balance. So I need to find out, what is it with me that makes it impossible for me to partner with another human being and be successful? And so ideally, I don't have another person in the picture in early sobriety. If that is my choice, if I can make that choice, say I get sober and I am alone, that's okay. That's the best way to do it, because you're not, filtering everything through what this person thinks, what this person is doing, how are they going to look at me? What do I think about them? It's so much more simple. So if there is no one in your life, don't pull someone in. I did that, and it made it so much harder to do the work. I found that the person was just my new addiction. And when I didn't want to look at myself, when I didn't want to do any work, when I didn't want to grow, which was going to be the only way I was going to get the life I have today, if I didn't want to do that work, they were my focus. They were my new focus. They were my new tool, like alcohol was, in order to get me through the day. How about I talk to you? How about you come over? How about you make me feel better? And so this, person that I invite into my life just becomes another, kind of like block between me and where I want to go. Oftentimes I'll be coaching somebody and they'll figure out that my husband and I were together since early sobriety, and we were off and on. That's very important to know. Off and on for 7 years. That's a lot of mistrust. And so I will say, you know what? Here's what you can do. You can not worry about a relationship right now and get to where you want to be, like this fast. Fast isn't the best word, but this route. Or you can do what I did, and then year after year, here's your path, where it could be like this, you're going. And so the pain that I had was self-inflicted because I wanted what I wanted and I wanted it now. And I wasn't willing to do the work on myself in order to attract a good, healthy person. And when you think about it, you're like, what work do I need to do on myself? Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't know until I started to do the work. One of the things I can give an example of is my relationship with my father was a little compromised. It was, there were 7 girls, there were 10 kids, and I never got the attention that I wanted or, kind of like the mentor that I wanted from a man. And so through nobody's fault, I'll just say that I didn't, really have a father figure that was healthy. So what did I do? In early sobriety, I'm attracted to people that are about the age that my father would have been when I really needed him to be in my life, really in my life. And so I'm 27 and I'm attracted to guys in their 40s. And I can't figure it out. I don't even think there's anything wrong with it. They give me attention. I feel good because I would have felt good had my dad been able to give Cathy the amount of attention that she needed at that time. And I can remember one time, bringing home a date, and my daughter was probably 6 years old, and she said, he's old? Isn't he too old? And I said, why do you think he's too old? And she's like, because he's got gray hair. And I said, he doesn't have gray hair. He has salt and pepper hair. And she said, well, it's a lot more salt than it is pepper, Mom. And so little by little, I started to learn that there was something about me that attracted, or that I was attracted to the people I was attracted to. I had some core beliefs that were not mine. I was brought up to believe that money was kind of bad per se, that if you had too much of it, maybe you were doing something wrong. You weren't helping enough people or whatever. So I had this idea that I was going to be self-righteously poor. And so I worked, and I worked hard. I worked 2 and 3 jobs as a single mom. But I would date somebody that barely was working. I would pay for a date or a pizza. And I kind of thought that made me look good. When in fact, if I really had done the work to have the self-worth that I eventually would get, I would be totally satisfied being pampered. I would know that I deserve to be taken care of. I would know that I deserve to go out on a date and have somebody spend $100, $200 on me in an evening because of who I was and the gift of being with me at any given time. But I hadn't done that work, so I wasn't that woman. So every bit of work that I did not do compromised who I came to the table as and who I attracted to the table to sit with me. So in early sobriety relationships, there's something that we want, there's something we dream about, but if they could be something that we work for, by working on ourselves. One of my best coaches said, you write down on a list everything that you want in a man. And I thought she was going to put it in a computer and give me some phone numbers. And then when I showed her the list, she said, marvelous. Put it on your mirror and you practice those qualities every day. And when you become that woman, you will attract that man. So in early sobriety, the goal is that I become that person that I want to attract. And if they're meant to come into my life, they will. And if not, I will just be totally satisfied being the person that I am until anything changes. So, Cathy McLeish, thanks for listening. It's all about us. And in that way, it's not selfish. No, it's not. But it's about us becoming who we could be, the best person that we could be, so that we can serve the people in our lives as a healthy, happy, fulfilled person. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, follow, and if you can, let's just help to break down a little bit of the ignorance about practicing alcoholics, recovering alcoholics, what recovery actually is over and above putting down a drink, and then we can become a part of the solution for others and especially for the people closest to us. Thanks.